How many of us have siblings? Okay, let's get a little deeper. Now I want you to think about who's the oldest. Up next, J. Cole said it best. Who's the middle child? All right, now for my favorites, the babies, the youngest, the ones who supposedly get everything they want. I personally relate to the babies. See, my parents, the oldest, the middle of the middle, and then the youngest. Having four siblings, it wasn't uncommon for me to be compared to at least one of them, especially since we all practically went to the same schools. But the one sibling I was always compared to was her. We went to the same exact school, so that came with having some of the same teachers. Okay, a little background about us. Her name is Gladys. She was born November 18th. I'm Amber, and I was born November 26th. Between our birthdays, we are exactly 4 years and 8 days apart. That being said, I was always compared to her. I can remember back in my elementary days walking into the office with my mother and the secretary saying that my mother had really sweet girls because I was just like Gladys. If you haven't picked up yet, Gladys is that really sweet girl that gets along with everyone and all the teachers loved her. Well, in a sense, I would like to think I'm like Gladys, but being that person that gets along with everyone is not me. I can remember going into my third grade class on the first day of school, and as I'm sitting in my seat, my teacher comes up to me and my mom, and she starts the conversation up with my mother. And my teacher then goes to mention how she knows that I will be just as sweet and as nice as my sister Gladys. My mom then proceeds to say, I hope she will be. Later that day, I go home, I go to Gladys and tell her about my first day and how my teacher mentioned her to me and Mama. Well, little did y'all know, my teacher never taught Gladys while she was at that school. It had been 2 years since Gladys had gone to that school and 4 since she had been in third grade. So when I was saying that teachers literally loved her, they loved her. But back then, I really didn't worry about being compared to Gladys because she was my older sister. I was that younger sister that always got on her nerves because she wanted to do what her big sister was doing. So being compared never bothered me that much. But in high school, everything began to change. Like I said earlier, Gladys and I are exactly 4 years and 8 days apart. This timing really began to affect me when I went to high school. Gladys graduated from high school in 2015. Well, I started high school in August 2015. That year, Gladys and her name were everywhere. She was on homecoming court, a high-ranking officer in ROTC, and even worked in the office. Well, coming in high school, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to be like Gladys or do the things that Gladys did. Having that mindset, I knew I would have to find me and that I couldn't make it through high school without finding something that would become a part of me. I decided I was going to take the agri-science class that my school was offering. I took the class because my friends were taking the class and I was hoping to potentially have a class with my friends. Well, considering my luck, we almost had the same teacher, but we didn't have the same hour, aka mission failed. But it was during that first semester of high school that I knew being a part of FFA was something I would continue. I knew that if I stayed, I would find somewhere in something that I wasn't being compared to Gladys in or always being called a young Gladys. If y'all know me, y'all know that I can't just do one thing. I have to be a part of several things because if not, I start getting bored and lazy. So I decided that I was going to join National Honor Society, and for my last 2 years of high school, I was going to do dance line. During the time of me finding things that were my interests, people still wanted me to do what my sister did. I can remember going down with my friend that was in ROTC down to the spaces and the commander asking when and if I was ever going to be like Gladys and join ROTC for 4 years. The closest I got to joining ROTC was my senior year when I needed volunteer hours and I volunteered to do the hurdles with them at the track meets. Those 4 years were the time that I became Amber and not just a younger version of Gladys. During that time, I found who I was and I thought I was just doing things I enjoyed. I never thought that I was doing things that would make people pay attention to me or notice me. So earlier this year, I was requested for a chapter visit because the advisor had some students he wanted me to talk to. Y'all don't know how shocked and surprised I was to find out that I was personally requested by mouth to come talk to students in a new chapter. So the time comes around and I think I'm just going to do a regular chapter visit. I walk into the classroom and the teacher is giving a little rundown about me, where I come from. He mentions how I went to a PW school and that I was able to make the best out of my situation and that I was able to make it very far in this organization. After talking about my experience in FFA, we started talking about my hometown of Calhoun. They were blown away at how green Calhoun was and how it's a small little dot on the map. a little dot that didn't have either a McDonald's or a Domino's. With that discovery, they were found out that Calhoun was not for them. After the visit, I was called aside by the advisor, and he said he had 2 students he wanted me to talk to. As I was standing there, the advisor mentioned that this is the organization I made it in, that I was and am exactly like them. My advisor saw something in me, they saw my potential, and they didn't just let it sit. The opportunities that I had are the same opportunities that y'all have. You may have to work a little harder for them, but you have them. Then he proceeds to say that I was able to make it out. The same organization that I made it out through is the same organization that you can make it out in. It was at that moment that I realized I was being seen. Before that, I thought I was just doing the things that brought me joy, and I enjoyed doing them. It never crossed my mind that people were watching me and paying attention to where I came from and where I was going. It wasn't until then that I realized I am Amber and my impact matters. Without being compared to Gladys, I wouldn't have been able to find my true self. I never would have been through the journeys or taken the risks I have. I wouldn't have found who I am and what I have, and I wouldn't have realized that my impact matters. So maybe the next time you're compared to a sibling or a close family member, instead of getting mad that it's happening to you, maybe think to yourself, how is this happening? How is this helping me become me? But never forget, you are not somebody else. You are you, and your impact matters.